Okay, I hope that this stream works out. I am not doing a live stream. This is going to be released later. I was thinking about doing one night, but I figured I didn't want to be distracted and have it go too long because I'd have to get up in the morning. So I, I want to revisit a couple details of the Strzok testimony. Now, showing that my video bitrate isn't too good, so hopefully I won't have to reshoot this. But in any case, this is the testimony that Peter Strzok gave to Jim Jordan, the representative from Ohio, who is actually, there's a lot of attacks against him right now over a personal scandal that I think is complete bullshit, over failing to report some sort of sexual harassment that happened in the early 90s by a team doctor on the wrestling team that he was the assistant coach for when the suspect committed suicide 13 years ago. So how are you supposed to litigate that? The guy's dead. But yet, people are trying to go after Jim Jordan for something that they can probably never prove nowadays. And yet, here's Peter Strzok behaving as he does, and Jordan kind of entraps him in a certain way. So here we go.
Ohio is recognized, but it's Jordan.
Thank you, Chairman. Agent Strzok, did you provide any information to reporters, journalists, or media personalities about anything related to Trump-Russia investigation in 2016, 17, or 18?
No.
Did the press ever talk to you, Agent Strzok, about this issue? Did they ever come to you?
The Trump-Russia collusion investigation?
Did the press ever
No, sir.
come to you? I'm asking first, did you talk to them? I'm asking now, did they ever come to you about anything related to Trump-Russia investigation in 2016, 2017, or 2018?
I received a number of calls from various members of the media, particularly when I returned from the Office of Special Counsel. In every instance,
Prior to going on the Special Counsel team, did you get any inquiries from the press that you took?
Not that I took. I referred them to the Office of Public Affairs of the FBI.
Have you read the dossier?
I have.
Okay, and you wrote about it too, didn't you?
I don't know what you mean by writing about it.
We got an email that you sent. It should be presented there, or should be in front of you there. I want you to take a look at this. This is an email you wrote to Lisa Page, Bill Priestap, Jim Baker, Jim Rubicki, and CC'd Andy McCabe. Subject line is BuzzFeed's about to publish the dossier. You familiar with this email?
I am.
All right. It says this: comparing now, the set is only identical to what McCain had. Parentheses, it has differences from what was given to us by Korn and Simpson. Did you write all that?
Congressman, let me answer it this way. The first, if I could address the chairman. Over the break, I was authorized by the General Counsel.
So I'd like to stop it there for a second. If you have the email in front of you and the email includes the header, including, the recipient and the sender, you were the sender and your name appears there, you better have a damn good explanation about why you did or didn't write it. So I don't remember if he actually answers that question.
Hang on a second. I just want my time stopped if you could. Are you addressing me or the chairman?
I'd like to address the chairman
the time.
This is all going to come together in an answer.
Is there a question you want to direct?
No, it's something I wanted to answer your question from earlier based on something I've been told by the FBI.
Wait.
I think I'm aware of what the FBI told you, and you and I will have another chance to talk about that. But right now, the gentleman from Ohio controls the time.
You wrote this. That was the question.
So obviously,
wait.
you have
Look at
it.
Do you see the from?
So Congressman, here's
Do you see the from line? Do you see the from line?
Congressman, I do.
It says
And I
Peter
understand.
Strzok. And then it says to Lisa Page and a whole bunch of other key people at the FBI. So did you write it?
I did write this.
All right, let me ask you a couple questions about it. It has differences from what was given to us by Korn and Simpson. Who's Korn?
Sir, to answer that question, and I would love.
So they do get into that. David Korn is he's a writer for Mother Jones. I would say he's supposedly far left, although people would dispute that.
Love to answer that question, and every part of me, and you know why I'd want to answer that question because you have this information.
Who's Simpson?
I have been, sir, if I may, I cannot answer that question.
You wrote
based
about
on
it. It's now public. Who's Korn? Who's Simpson?
Based on direction by the FBI, sir, I am not able to answer questions about ongoing investigative matters.
I just want to figure this out. I want to figure this out, Agent Strzok. You're referencing 3 copies of the dossier. The BuzzFeed copy you have, the one John McCain's staff gave to you, and the one that you said you got from Korn and Simpson. The one McCain gave to you and the one BuzzFeed has are identical in your words, but they have the Korn and Simpson one is different.
Sir,
this is kind of important.
It is important, and I want to answer your question. And here's the position that I'm in, Congressman. I have been directed. May I answer your question?
Mr. Chairman, may the witness be permitted
Mr.
to
Chairman,
answer the question?
So throughout the day, sorry for the freezing again, it's probably my internet, but the whole time, by the way, if you've seen some of the videos, the Democratic members of that committee started just hectoring the Republican members whenever they're asking questions. Now, you know, in this case, they're saying, well, will he let him answer the question? Well, the whole Peter Strzok's answer every single time was that I can't answer the question. So he's not answering the question. He's giving an excuse why he can't answer the question, which is that the FBI has instructed him not to answer it. So no, it's not the same thing. If he uses the same excuse for literally everything, and in this case, if you're talking about the identities of Glenn Simpson and David Korn, it's public knowledge already that those people were involved in disseminating the Steele Dossier. Glenn Simpson, in fact, from what I understand, he's the person who employed David Steele, Christopher Steele. Glenn Simpson was the founder of Fusion GPS.
Jordan repeatedly asks a question, doesn't let him answer it.
The gentleman from Ohio controls the time.
I have been directed that I may state that I have read the dossier, that I read the dossier as it came in parts and pieces.
You've already told me you read it. And I want to know who Korn and Simpson are.
And, sir, what I'm telling you is that I have been directed I may not state the various places
okay,
where
let me ask
the
you this.
FBI
I got it. I know what you're
information.
saying. I know what you're saying. Did you ever communicate with David Korn?
No.
Did you ever communicate with Glenn Simpson?
No.
Did you ever communicate with Nellie Orr?
No.
Did you ever communicate with Bruce Orr?
Yes.
When did you communicate with Bruce Orr?
My recollection is somewhere between possibly 3 or 4 or 5 times in the late 2016, early 2017 timeframe.
What did you talk about?
We talked about investigative matters that Mr. Orr was involved in.
Did you talk about the investigation we're focused on here, Agent Strzok?
My direction from the FBI is that I may not answer that question.
I got it. Let's go back to the email that you...
He can't answer a question that he talked to somebody about a certain topic. That's how bizarre and bullshitty the FBI has become. Bruce Orr and Peter Strzok have been instructed by the FBI not to reveal whether they talked about the investigation, not whether they're talking about the actual, not about the actual content itself, but whether they even talked about it. What's so classified about that?
You sent that you won't talk about. Are there 3 copies of the dossier as evidenced by what you said in this email?
Sir, to be clear, I want to talk about this email. I want nothing more than
all
answer your
you
question
want, but you're
because
not talking about it. You're not answering my questions. Are there 3 copies?
3 copies of what?
The McCain copy, the BuzzFeed copy, and the one that you got from Korn and Simpson.
Sir, the most I can say is we received a variety of copies of and different types of
Let me ask you one other question. Glenn Simpson testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee on August 22nd, 2017. He was asked, did anyone from Fusion ever communicate with the FBI? His response, no. No one from Fusion ever spoke with the FBI. So here's what I'm having trouble understanding. If Glenn Simpson says no one ever spoke with the FBI, how is it that you got a copy of the dossier from Simpson?
Sir, I can tell you I never had contact with Fusion, with Mr. Simpson, with Mr. Korn. And again, sir.
Chairman, regular order. The gentleman will have a few more seconds since he was interrupted.
Well, I mean, this is the frustration that every single member of this committee feels is when Agent Strzok won't answer, well, more importantly, the American people feel when Agent Strzok won't answer fundamental questions like the guy he references in an email, Corn and Simpson, and won't tell me who they are. This is unbelievable. But that's where it's gotten to now, and it's as frustrating as it can get, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Briefly.
Sir, it is as frustrating to me as it is to you. I can tell you, sir, that I would love...
Well, you know what, Agent Strzok?
Mr. Chairman, may the witness be permitted to answer.
If it's so... If
Gentlemen will suspend...
If it's so frustrating, answer the question.
If you'll allow him to, I'm sure he will.
He has never answered the question who Corn and Simpson are.
Him.
We're about
The gentleman instruct the gentleman from Ohio to stop badgering and allow him to answer
the whole exchange centers around the Democrats claiming, well, he's answering your question. No, saying that somebody told me I can't answer you is not answering the question. And the fact that what's revealed here is that yes, there were journalists, if you count David Corn as a journalist, which is pretty much what he claims to be, who contacted the FBI and were involved in, this sort of activity. There were journalists who were involved in the process of propagating the Steele Dossier and basically running interference for the investigation. So Strzok and Orr and all those people, they're basically enabled by a media. They were talking to reporters. Somebody was talking to reporters about it. If reporters were involved in supplying a dossier to them.
question.
We're about to move on. The gentleman from Ohio's time's expired. And we're about to move on where Mr. Strzok can answer a question that he refused to answer earlier on advice of counsel. And I'm going to yield to Mr. Gowdy for the purpose of doing that right now.
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Gowdy starts, may I respond to Mr. Jordan?
Very briefly.
Very briefly, sir. I would love to do that. There is an appropriate time for oversight, and as you well know, that is at the end of an investigation once it's concluded. I am certain Congress will absolutely have the opportunity to look at any investigation once it's closed, ask all these questions, and I would love to answer each and every one of your questions
Mr.
once
Strzok,
the FBI allows me.
We already know that answer from you, and you have already been advised that you can answer the questions here, because guess what? This is the United States Congress where you're testifying, not under the jurisdiction of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Mr. Chairman, we cannot be asking about an ongoing investigation that is sabotaging an ongoing investigation by this committee. And that's what he's not cooperating with, and we should not do it.
It is
and he cannot cooperating with that.
These questions are table-setting questions regarding the formation of this, and he can answer those questions. But
he cannot answer questions regarding an ongoing investigation.
That he can, and so Mr.
He's
Gowdy's
advised by the FBI that he cannot.
No, he's been advised that he can, and Mr. Gowdy's going to again ask his question.
The gentleman from Ohio has asked for 15 seconds.
So, Agent Strzok, who's being square here? Glenn Simpson says no one from Fusion spoke with the FBI. You say in your email, we got a copy of the dossier from Simpson.
Mr. Chairman, regular order.
We will have regular order, and we'll revisit that question. Now the chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina.
Agent Strzok,
So essentially, I don't know if we want to go into the whole Trey Gowdy clip. There was a much longer one that I think was at the very beginning. And, I think there's going to be a couple more that I'm going to check out. I think this was a very interesting day. I was very not happy. And I don't think that people should have expected much, because he's not going to come in there and say, oh yeah, I did fuck up the investigation. I was completely, it was my fault. I did make a complete laughing stock out of the agency that I work for in order to sabotage its actual work. No, he was not going to go say that. Here's Jordan talking later today or yesterday about what happened in terms of Bruce Orr.
Agent Peter Strzok, grilled by our next guest on his encounters with Justice Department official Bruce Orr, the Justice Department official who had been in contact with former British intelligence agents Christopher Steele, the man who compiled the discredited and fraudulent anti-Trump dossier for Fusion GPS. His wife, Nellie Orr, of course, employed by Fusion GPS. We now turn to Congressman Jim Jordan, serving as a member of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, also the co-founder of the influential House Freedom Caucus. And today, under his questioning, Peter Strzok acknowledging the source of the so-called dossier. Congressman, first, great to have you with us, and thank you for everything you do. And what you did today was critically important. Your thoughts on Peter Strzok and the degree to which you had to be somewhat surprised that suddenly, after he had tried to stonewall you 2 hours previously, he gave you an answer.
Right. Remember a couple things. Peter Strzok's the key guy. He's the lead agent on the Clinton investigation, lead agent on the Russian investigation. Today in committee, I think for the first time, the FBI and the DOJ have admitted that they got the dossier, parts of the dossier, from Bruce Orr. So always remember this. Bruce Orr's wife, Nellie Orr, worked for Fusion GPS. Glenn Simpson, the company, the agency that was hiring Christopher Steele. Now we know that Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr, who worked for them, was giving information to her husband, who then passed it to the FBI. So this kind of confirms what we always suspected, what was in the majority memo back in January. But I believe it's the first time the Department of Justice and the FBI have admitted to that very fact.
And you also were watching as Strzok started talking about the dossier published by BuzzFeed News, as people may not always recall, but that is where it was published. He acknowledged that it was identical to the documents that Senator McCain had passed along to the FBI. I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, this was this big kind of circle that was going on. All kinds of media outlets, all kinds of people were giving the FBI information, it looks like, about this dossier information. But the fact that Bruce Orr, the fourth-ranking official in the Justice Department, one of the top people in the Justice Department, his wife was working for Fusion GPS, and we now know Bruce Orr was actually in September of 2016 giving parts of the dossier to the FBI. I think that's significant because remember, Lou, it was the dossier that this whole case was built on. The dossier is what they took to the secret court to get the secret warrant to spy on Carter Page. They didn't tell the court anything about the Orrs. They didn't tell the court anything about Bruce Orr giving them information. They didn't tell the court that Christopher Steele had been fired by the FBI, and they didn't tell the court that the dossier was paid for by the Clinton campaign. That launched everything. The other key element in the hearing was when we learned that when Peter Strzok was kicked off of Mueller's team, Bob Mueller didn't ask him any questions. Didn't ask him about his bias and some of these crazy things he had said in his text messages. So this investigation started off with, I think, with this baloney dossier, and now at the end, when they're getting rid of Peter Strzok, there's all kinds of smell there too. That's the problem.
Well, it's a problem that seems to be now, again, under your questioning in particular, it is a problem that looks like it may be headed toward, for the first time, resolution. I want to, tomorrow, Lisa Page, Strzok's lover, give us a sense of what we can expect and what you expect in the closed-door testimony.
Well, she's...
This is crucial because there was a statement. I don't know why they're now saying that she's going to appear, because from what I understood, she was going to refuse to abide by the subpoena and she would not appear before Congress.
No longer an employee of the FBI.
Right.
So Peter Strzok had FBI counsel there saying you can't answer these questions because of cert. She won't be able to assert that tomorrow when we're in a closed-door deposition setting. So she's going to get a lot of these same questions, but I don't think she can assert that privilege and say she can't hide behind, oh, the FBI counsel recommends that I not answer this question, which Agent Strzok did several times, as you could see from the hearing, several times today. So that...
Sorry, that's again my internet.
FBI agent Peter Strzok, Strzok's lover.
Assert that tomorrow when we're in a closed-door deposition setting. So she's going to get a lot of these same questions, but I don't think she can assert that privilege and say she can't hide behind, oh, the FBI counsel recommends that I not answer this question, which Agent Strzok did several times, as you could see from the hearing, several times today. So that, I think, will be a big difference tomorrow in that interview.
I would like for this audience to see the Democratic, part of the Democratic response to a discredited, disgraced FBI agent testifying before your committees, Judiciary and Oversight today, and just see what you were up against as they tried to disrupt and to stall the proceedings. If we could just show everybody a little bit of that.
If I could give you a Purple Heart, I would. You deserve one.
Let me begin by congratulating the witness on his completely correct statement of key First Amendment law, that people are entitled to political opinions.
And I'm so sorry for the treatment you've received here today. As a member of Congress, as a member of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, I take no pleasure in watching this spectacle.
What this is about is for the American public, Mr. Strzok. It's really not about you. They want to damage and destroy our democracy. And one of the ways they do it is by taking an institution like the FBI and destroying it.
If anybody should be pissed at the FBI because you all helped this unfit man become president of the United States by not revealing to the people that he was under investigation in his campaign, it should be me. They should be applauding you, kissing you, and giving you all awards.
Congressman, Democrats who served with you in those committees, they seem to be very excited about a person who is under investigation for basically subversion of the United States.
Two key points here. Peter Strzok, the day after the Mueller special counsel investigation was announced, the very next day, Peter Strzok is talking about impeachment of the President of the United States. So that shows where he comes from. Second, the dossier which launched it all. The dossier which launched it all, we have proven today in the committee was information that came through Nellie Orr, through her husband, Bruce Orr, one of the top officials at the Justice Department, to the FBI. That was the catalyst for this whole thing, and it was flawed from the beginning. So if the document that started it all is flawed, and you got a guy who wants to impeach the president on the tail end when the day after the Mueller investigation is announced, that should show you how bad this investigation has really been moving.
Congressman Jim Jordan, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jim Jordan is one of the few rare politicians, I guess few and rare would be redundant, but he's one of the rare politicians in Ohio who really is, you know, you really get your money's worth with what he's doing. Now, once the Russia investigation is over, I don't know what his ambitions are. I mean, I think he is running for re-election, but unfortunately, I think that the message here is, you know, it's a dark one, which is that if we want to see revealed what these dirty FBI people were doing, and to actually perhaps clean the bureau and make it much more ethical than it's been, and it isn't just with regards to the Trump administration. You know, I was talking with Number 80 yesterday that there are a lot of avenues, you know, going deep into the FBI's history in the 60s and probably even beyond that, where the agency was basically acting as a law unto itself, you know, abusing people. Abusing minorities among them, but abusing a lot of people in general, and basically keeping files on them as sort of a domestic spying agency before the digital age, which, you know, of course, it was the Cold War, but you can justify a lot of dirty crap with the Cold War. But in any case, what we have to underline here is that in order to keep revealing what the hell is going on with this agency, unfortunately, I will have to recommend that you vote in your congressional election for the House for the Republican candidate. It's not easy for me to advocate for a party. There are a lot of Republicans that are currently serving that are kind of bullshitters. I don't think that Jim Jordan is one, but there are certainly a number who, for example, Paul Ryan, you know, their leader, so-called leader, that have basically allowed America to become to get into the quicksand that it's been in. And they would have been fine if in 2016 Hillary Clinton would have gotten elected and there would have still been deadlocks, so the Democrats and Republicans would have cut their stupid, crappy deals. As bizarre as it sounds, I think this year you are going, if you want this specific issue to be resolved, maybe other issues are more important to you that would make you vote Democrat, and that's fine. I personally don't think I could vote Democrat again. Not that I actually never have voted Democrat. There were many years that I didn't vote at all. But the Republicans would have to retain control of the House in order to get to the bottom of this Russiagate bullshit. There's been so much deception and so much cover-up that if you look at that clip at the very end with Luis Gutierrez, who, by the way, is retiring, though, as well as Steve Cohen and a bunch of these other congressional Democrats, if they got control of the House, it would be impossible for Congress to actually be a real oversight body for the federal investigation agencies, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and other federal law enforcement agencies, the U.S. Marshals, Secret Service, whatever. And the FBI is the worst among them. So if you don't want that to happen, if that is an important thing to you, and maybe it's not, but if it is important to you, you're probably gonna have to vote Republican. I'm sorry to tell you, and that would be a shit sandwich to eat. In some states, they're really not. There are certain states where being a Republican doesn't really mean anything anyway. I would say across the nation there are a lot of states where it really is just like being the member of AAA or something, or a member of a discount propane club. That's what the Republican Party is in some of these states, like Connecticut and Rhode Island and Massachusetts, all those states up there. If you're a member of that party, I don't know what the hell you're doing, because you haven't accomplished anything. You haven't convinced anybody to come along. Could be a cultural issue. Anyway, that's about it for me. I hope you guys do enjoy this video. Please like it. Please share the video. Subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys later. And also share the video if I haven't said that already.